This is Fat2Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Hello there. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. This is episode 39, and I'm your host, Amy English. I hope you're having a great week so far. And hey, listen, before we dive into today's topic, I want to invite you to follow this podcast. So if you're on Spotify or wherever you're listening, just give it a little follow. And this way you will get notified every time a new episode is live, which is typically every Thursday. All right, without further ado, let's dive into the topic today, shall we? I thought it would be fun to talk about thoughts. Let's dive in. So here's what I mean by this. First of all, let me back up just a second. In the world of Fat2Fierce, so in the program that is Fat2Fierce, there are three main pillars: mind, body, and heart. Okay? Your mind. It's all about the thoughts that you're thinking. It's all about those sentences that are scrolling across your brain every day. You know, I like to think of it, if you've ever watched the stock market on TV, right, on a news program or whatever, and you see the ticker tape kind of going across. It's like how I like to think about thoughts. Okay, they're just kind of scrolling across your brain throughout the day. Like, it literally never stops. Maybe when you're sleeping. I don't even really know. I don't know the science behind that. But thoughts are constant. And just a quick little story about this. So back in the day when I first discovered meditation, I used to think I was meditating wrong because I could never stop the thoughts, could never stop the train of thoughts coming in. And I used to get so frustrated because I honestly thought at the time that I needed to stop my thoughts in order to meditate successfully. I later learned that that is not the case, that meditation is not about stopping your thoughts, okay? It is simply about recognizing the thoughts are still going to come. You just get to decide if you want to pay attention to them or not. So now when I meditate and I notice the daily to-do list or whatever coming up, I just simply remind myself, we're not there. I don't need to pay attention to this right now. I'll come back to it when I'm done, and I continue my meditation. Because I actually find meditation to be incredibly helpful. And I do different types of meditation. There's this tree pose that I learned recently where you literally stand up and your arms are out like a T and just kind of close your eyes and picture the energy coming in and out. It's actually very soothing. And always feels amazing after I do that energetically. So anyway, there's that. All right. So anyway, Fat2Fierce, three pillars: mind, body, heart. Mind is all about the mind. It's all about the thoughts. The body is really just about the physical form, reconnecting with our body, getting to know our bodies better, understanding the difference between physical and emotional hunger. That's all part of the body pillar. And then there's the heart, which is all about the emotions. It's about the feelings. It's about the emotions that can trigger us to eat emotionally. It's about realizing that all of the emotions are part of the human experience, including the icky negative emotions that none of us like to feel. Like, no, nobody likes to feel sad, but there are times in life when we're going to feel sad. Just like there are times we don't like to feel stressed, right? But there are times in life when stress is going to kick in, and it would be weird if it didn't in certain situations. Like, I think about this. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, that was a very stressful situation. Wouldn't it be weird if I didn't feel stressed out when that happened? Like, wouldn't it be weird if I was like, oh yeah, no big deal, it's fine? I don't know. Maybe some people are like that. I certainly wasn't, and I'm still not. There are moments in life that cause stress. It's a very natural, normal human emotion. The difference is being able to allow the feeling, not have to avoid it, not have to distract from it, and certainly not have to stuff it down. Here's the thing. I know we're talking about thoughts today, but I'm just going to go off on this quick little tangent. Here's the thing about stuffing our emotions, specifically with food. Okay. When we stop, when we try to avoid those negative emotions, okay, so everybody has certain emotion. Those of us who eat emotionally have certain emotions that will trigger the urge to food, whether it's stress, boredom, sadness, anger, frustration, overwhelm, whatever, right? And the thing is, when we're using food to squash that emotion or to stuff it down, to distract, to avoid it, we're not processing the emotion, right? We're not allowing ourselves to experience and feel that emotion. So what happens is I think of it this way, it literally gets stuffed down with the food. And then because it hasn't been processed, it has nowhere to go. And this is why, for me specifically, I would recognize like the more I would stuff those emotions down with food, the more they'd kind of be bottled up inside. And then eventually at some point, like it would be like a burst, right? I'd kind of like have this explosion of like whatever. It's because like all that bottled up emotion at some point was going to burst. So again, like it's actually really powerful and really helpful and really healing to be able to experience your emotions, even the ones that don't feel great. It's all part of the experience. And when you can learn to do that, it just helps. Okay. Tangent over. So back to thoughts. So with the mind being a pillar of the Fat2Fierce program, the Fat2Fierce world, a big part of the mind, obviously, is thoughts, the thoughts we think throughout the day, every day, and really learning to question those thoughts. Are they helpful? Are they harmful? Are they neither, right? Are they just whatever, indifferent? So I'm going to share today, I'm going to share a tool that was really helpful for me in the beginning of this work. So in the beginning of me working with a life coach, of me recognizing, learning that I actually could pay attention to and investigate my thoughts. And that's really what this is. It's taking an inventory of the thoughts that are in your mind, of the way that your mind is operating, of the thoughts that you're thinking throughout the day, taking inventory of them. Okay. So capturing them, writing them down, typing them into your phone, whatever the case. Okay. Finding a way to take inventory of them and document them, and then investigating them, questioning them, asking yourself, is this thought helping me? Because here's the other piece to this, okay? Your thoughts will impact your actions and your behaviors. They're going to impact the actions you take and the actions you don't take. And where that can come in real handy is by recognizing like the actions you're not taking that you keep saying you want to do. All right. Like maybe exercise. That's a real common one, right? Like we say we want to exercise, but then we don't do it. What's preventing us from not exercising, right? A lot of times it's thoughts. I'm too tired. I just don't feel like it. I had a really long day. I don't want to, right? You can recognize all those thoughts that you're thinking, and then you can start to question them. Well, is that true? Like, what else could be true? How am I going to, like, how does that thought leave me feeling? How would I feel if I actually just went ahead and did 5 minutes of movement, right? This is what I mean by questioning the thoughts that we're thinking. We don't have to like believe everything that our brain produces. We don't have to buy all the thoughts that the brain is selling. All right. I guess that's what I'm trying to say here. So, how the heck do we do this? Well, first, I want to just share a little bit of history of how this whole thing started. So, it would have been back in like 2015, and I was working with my first life coach, which is always a fun story because I had discovered her accidentally she was advertising her coaching practice on the bulletin board at the dentist's office that I was going to at the time. And I did not know what a life coach was. I was like, what the heck is a life coach? But I took down her information because I was curious. And of course, now you know, I'm so glad I had that initial conversation with her and signed up for her 3-month program at the time, because it absolutely changed my life and put me on the path to becoming a life coach myself. I'll never forget the very last session with her when I realized, because I had hired this life coach because I wanted to figure out, I wanted some help figuring out what I wanted to be when I grow up. I was trying to figure out what my next career move was going to be, because I knew I was leaving the wireless telecommunications industry, but I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And it was working with her that made me realize, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. I want to help people. I want to help people the way life coaching has helped me. I want to do this work. And it wasn't until several months after that I realized it was going to be around the food and body stuff. Because listen, I did not go into life coach training thinking I was going to be an emotional eating coach. Heck no. That never even crossed my mind. The whole reason, did I tell you about this? I can't remember. The whole reason emotional eating came up for me is because when I was in coach training, they had us bring something that we wanted to work on, like a real topic that we wanted to work on with our peers. And my topic was emotional eating, because as you know, my breast cancer diagnosis highlighted the fact that I was stress eating way too often, and I wanted to change that. And so that's what I brought to coach training with me to get, to work on with my peers. And it was so incredibly effective that it just kind of happened that I then was like, all right, I want to help people with this. This is what I do. I'm an emotional eating coach now, and it's the best thing ever. It makes me so happy when my clients realize they haven't had a binge or aren't stress eating, even when really stressful things happen in their lives. It is the best thing ever. Anyway, okay. Where was I? So we're talking about thoughts. And this is, so in the early days of working with my life coach in the beginning, I never realized that we could question our thoughts. This was never taught in school. I never really stopped to think about what I was thinking about. I mean, does anybody? Not really. I mean, now I do. And now I know plenty of people who do, who are in the life coach field, right? But unless you've been taught how to do this, or that it's even possible, it's just not something that we realize we can do. Question our thoughts. Find better thoughts. And I want to be clear, because thought work on its own, it can be very effective. Absolutely. Is it the end all be all for all things healing? I don't think so. It hasn't been for me. It's been a combination of the work, which is why I have 3 pillars in Fat2Fierce, right? It's been a combination of understanding your thoughts, understanding your emotions, reconnecting with your body. Okay. Your body, your friend. I've had plenty of episodes on your body. If you haven't listened to those, I invite you to do that, because we went through why it is so important to build that relationship with your body. Okay. It's a big part of it as well. Listen, the world of emotional eating and negative body image is there's a lot there. I've talked about that tangled ball of yarn, that the diet world messaging and everything is kind of encompassed in that. And so what we're doing is we're unraveling that tangled ball of yarn. That's why thought work alone, again, while it can be super powerful and it's very helpful, it's not always, it's rarely the only piece of the puzzle. Okay. It's a big piece, but not the only piece. All right. Without further ado, shall I just introduce you to this little exercise, this little practice that was super helpful for me. And I thought, hey, if you want to give it a whirl on your own, go for it. So this is what it looks like. It's taking an inventory of your thoughts. Okay. So it's recognizing the thoughts that you're thinking throughout the day. And one way that I like to think about the thoughts, okay? So before I learned about thought work, okay, I think of my thoughts then as like an untrained puppy. Okay. There's a quote out there about this. I don't remember exactly what it is, but stay with me. I'll get this out. So think of your brain, think of your brain like an untrained puppy. Okay. Those of you who have ever had a puppy before, you know that until the puppy is trained, they're kind of going to the bathroom anywhere and everywhere, right? Because the whole idea is that you need to train them to go outside or on a piddle pad or whatever it is that you're using, right? Your brain is kind of the same way. And what I mean by that is it's kind of peeing everywhere. It's kind of just going off. There's like all these thoughts coming from every different direction, and you're just thinking about all these different things until you learn to start training your brain. And by training your brain, I just mean recognizing the thoughts that you're thinking, paying attention to them, redirecting them, questioning them, recognizing, are these helpful or harmful? Do I even need to keep thinking this thought? Do I want to keep thinking this thought? Where did this thought come from? Is it even mine? Like, we get to ask all these questions about the thoughts that we're thinking throughout the day. What I have found in my own personal journey is that a lot of the thoughts that I was thinking every day, number one, they weren't mine to begin with. Okay. They were handed down over time from over generations in some cases. And also, a lot of them were harmful and they weren't even necessarily true. And so over the years, I have just gotten really good at questioning these thoughts because some of them will still come up, right? And I just wait, is that even true? What else could be true? And that's one of my favorite questions that I've learned through the years of dabbling in this life coach world is what else could be true? And so I'll paint this with some examples. But first, here's what the practice looks like. And I'm just going to share it with you the way that I've done it over the years. And as always, take what's useful, ditch the rest, okay? And if you would like to get some support with this or get some help with this, please book a connection call with me. You can head right to my website, amyenglishcc.com, book a connection call, and we'll spend some time going through this and see if it's helpful for you, all right? So here's the thing. First step is you want to get an inventory of your thoughts, okay? So you want to collect a list of the thoughts that you're thinking every day throughout the day, okay? And the way I did this, and I'm just going to share how I was taught how to do this from my coaches over the years, is by having an alarm go off throughout the day, just during the waking hours, okay? Having an alarm go off, and when that alarm goes off, writing down the thoughts that I'm thinking, whatever's going across my brain, whatever's scrolling, okay? Whatever I'm thinking in that moment. And so I would write it down. And then at the end of the day, when you have this list of thoughts that you've thought that have come up throughout the day, you can start to investigate them. And what I mean by that is you can start to question them. You can start to look at them. You can see which thoughts are on repeat. Like we call these, which ones are like the top tunes or the top offenders, if you will, right? Especially if they're negative thoughts. But I would start to circle the ones that repeated themselves throughout the day. And I'm like, oh, these are my top tunes. These are the ones that keep playing on repeat. And some of those were my fat mentality thoughts, like, I look fat today. I'm never going to lose weight. I have no control around food. Okay. All of those were a lot of my top tunes. All right. And it's helpful to see your top tunes because you can start to see how those are just automatically playing on repeats. Those are kind of like the puppy peeing in the corner in the house over and over and over again. until you're like, wait a second, we need to take you outside. We literally kind of need to check in with these thoughts and take them outside and really start to question them. Is this true? What else could be true? Do I want to think this anymore? Like, do I want to keep telling myself that? Is it helpful or is it harmful? For me, I found that a lot of these repeat offenders or top tunes, these thoughts on repeat were harmful. And they were actually negatively impacting my journey. And that can be the case with a lot of the thoughts that are just kind of on autopilot. I've talked about in emotional eating how the act of eating can be on autopilot. Like we have a stressful day and we just automatically go to the pantry or the freezer or the drive-through, like sometimes without even thinking about it. Or like before we know it, we've eaten the entire package of chips and we're like, what just happened? Kind of happens on autopilot. Well, the same can be true of your thoughts, right? Like you don't even really realize what you're thinking until you start to pay attention and really put your attention and focus there and see the thoughts that you're thinking. Okay. And this is how you change the autopilot thinking. All right. To have more intentional thinking, more intentional thoughts that can actually be helpful instead of always being harmful. And so what I would do, take an inventory of the thoughts, write them all down, become the private investigator, I would literally circle the ones on repeat, right? And then, so whichever thought was repeated the most, that would be the first one that I'd start to question, right? That would be the first one that I'd start to look at and say, here, let's use as an example, I look fat today, okay? Because I know that one used to come up all the time. So I look fat today. Okay, is this true? Well, first of all, it would be like, is this helpful or is this harmful, right? It was harmful. I know it was harmful because how did I feel when I thought that thought? When I'm constantly telling myself I look fat today, how does that feel? It didn't feel good. It felt terrible. It felt shameful, embarrassing, disappointing, right? And so, okay, it doesn't feel good. It's not a helpful thought. It's a harmful thought. All right. Is it even true? Is it true? Maybe sometimes I thought it was true. Sure. What else could be true? Right. So instead of I look fat today, what else could be true? Well, I look like me today. Right. Or, I don't know. I look nice today. I look professional today. I like my hair today. Okay, this is where like recognizing, because a lot of the harmful thoughts, let's face it, a lot of the more harmful thoughts are going to be critical. Okay. So this is the critic, the internal critic. What we want to do is we want to start sharing the space with a more supportive message, okay? With your inner cheerleader, I like to call him or her, right? Or them, right? So your inner cheerleader, your inner supporter, the one who is going to kind of like pep you up, right? Instead of always bringing you down. And so this is where I would come up with a compliment. Okay, well, maybe I'm thinking I look fat today, but what's one compliment I can find for myself? I like my hair today. My eyes look nice. Whatever. Like I like my sweater. Something that feels better, okay? And the whole point in this is that you're starting to recognize the thoughts that you're thinking that are harmful, that are continuously popping up, and you're starting to question them. And as you're questioning them, you're recognizing if they're helpful or if they're harmful, and you're finding new thoughts, different thoughts to share the space, so to speak. Okay. You're bringing in another perspective. You're looking at something in a different way. So instead of just automatically looking at something in a negative light, you're switching the lens. I I always think of it. Have you ever been to the eye doctor for to get, checked for glasses? And they're constantly flipping the different lens to see which one you see better, to see more clearly out of. That's how I think of this. Okay. Where instead of just putting on the blurry glasses and looking out the blurry lens all the time, we're kind of changing the lens to see what maybe looks a little bit more clear, what looks a little bit better. And we're trying out different lenses to see which one feels better. Okay. That's how I look at this. And it's possible, like, we get to do this for ourselves. We literally, this is about taking ownership of yourself. It's about taking responsibility for your thoughts, for the things that you think about, and really just deciding, do you want to continue on this path with these thoughts, or do you want to change things? Do you want to feel better? Do you want to look at things through a different lens and in a different light? And if you do, then this little practice, this little exercise that I'm sharing today is a phenomenal way to get started. It's how I got started, right? This is the work. This is one of the first ways that I was introduced to doing thought work. And so if you've ever heard people talking about thought work and mindfulness and all this other stuff, it's kind of what it is. It's becoming mindfulness. And I know this word gets tossed around all the time, be mindful. It is really, the way I see it is about being aware of how you're spending your mental energy, where you're directing your attention, what you're saying to yourself, the way you're talking to yourself, right? The thoughts that you're thinking. It's all of this. And in the world of Fat2Fierce, I mean, this is literally Fat2Fierce, okay? Fat2Fierce, I've said this before, it is not the physical transformation, although I know that's wonderful and everybody talks about that, okay? I get it. Hey, I'm proud of myself and how far I've come. I know. But it's more about the internal transformation, and I mean that the way you think about yourself, okay? It's the thoughts, it's the feelings, it's the way you talk to yourself, it's the way you think about yourself, it's the words that you're saying. It's quieting that critic, because listen, and this is important, we all have a critic, every one of us. And the critic, we don't want the critic to go away, okay? And I know that that's going to sound crazy, all right? And maybe some people will disagree with me, and that's okay. The critic is there for a reason, okay? And the critic in some ways has been protective over the years. The critic has served a purpose, okay? The critic is a part of you. And we don't want the critic to completely go away, because she does serve a purpose. She can be helpful at times. The thing is, she doesn't need to be running the show, okay? She doesn't need to have I'm saying she, but please use whatever pronoun works for you, all right? She doesn't need to have the bullhorn. She doesn't need to have center stage, and she doesn't need to be in the spotlight, all right? She can still be there and she can hang out, and that's fine. We got to remember that there is the inner cheerleader as well. And then there's also you. You are not your critic. You're also not your cheerleader. You're you. You just have these parts of you that make up all of you. Okay? So the whole point for those of us who have been overly critical about ourselves over the years, a lot of times passed down from others and just society as a whole, when you're overly critical of yourself, a lot of times that means that your critic has just kind of been running the show, okay? It's a lot of it is based on thoughts that we think about ourselves, thoughts that we have carried for years, for decades, okay? My thoughts about my body and being fat, I mean, I'd carried those since I was about 9 or 10 years old. The first time that the idea that there was something wrong with my body was introduced in my young life, okay? Those thoughts I carried from the age of 9 or 10 all the way up till I started doing this work at 39, 40 years old. Okay? 3 decades. It's a long time. All right. So the other piece to this too is we want to be patient with ourselves. We want to be compassionate, right? we want to look at this with curiosity. There's such a huge benefit to being curious with yourself. And that plays a huge role in investigating your thoughts, okay? And being the private investigator is just being curious, all right? So instead of looking at your thoughts with judgment and, that continuous negativity, just want to have some curiosity, have some compassion, have some understanding, and then just start to question them. What else could be true? What else would I be willing to think? What are some other thoughts about me that could be helpful? What is a more helpful thought, right? What would I like to think about instead? The more you practice this, the more you're going to build that mental muscle and the easier that it's going to get. And I will tell you that present day, I still continuously do this work on a daily basis. I'm always picking up like new thoughts to practice, new things that I want to focus on, new ways that I want to see myself, see my business, that kind of thing, right? I'm always focusing on where I'm putting my mental energy. And it has changed my life in more ways than I can even count. So, all that said, I hope this has been helpful today. I hope you enjoy it. And as always, if you would like additional support, book a connection call. It's free and we're going to chat for an hour and it's going to be fun. All right. I hope you have a great week. Are you ready to take control of your eating, embrace your body, and boost your confidence? Then let's get fierce. Start your Fat2Fierce journey today. Go to amyenglishcc.com for more resources and to book your discovery call.